is America's fastest growing morning show. That's right, it is. I mean, I've looked at the numbers, and welcome, and more welcome. And do us a favor right now. Let's all go to the like button on YouTube and hit like. I'm not smart enough to understand why that helps our show, but it does. All right, don't hit me with, well, they're just college students. Well, that's fine. They might just be college students, but they're also idiots. I mean, at times. Very smart at other times. Fun to be around most times. But the level of stupid by the LSU women's program, it just simply won't end. I mean, we got to pay attention to it because they won and all this stupid crap. But it hit a new low. Flav Johnson, I don't know what, I don't know what she was thinking, but she apparently is a player on LSU's women's team. And she decided to throw in some lyrics about, well, smoke in the towers on 9/11. In this 9/11, blowing smoke just like them towers. So she's in a car blowing them smoke. So she's smoking weed, which great for her, good for her. I mean, that's what college athletes, you guys want to defend them, you guys want to pay them. But she's in that 9/11 blowing smoke like them towers. This genius decided, for whatever the reason, that she was going to include 9/11 and the towers that many people, black, white, everybody, lost their lives. The towers where families were destroyed. The towers where our country was under attack. And this genius here decided that she's going to use a reference. Look, some things just have to be off limits. Now, I don't care if you're black, white, you're a rapper, you're whatever. Some things just must be off limits. And this idiot decided that apparently the worst attack on American soil isn't off limits for some idiotic rap song. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, come on. I mean, I get it. You won a championship. 8th grade boys could beat you, but you won a championship. Wonderful. Yay, rah. It's fantastic to watch. We all got to pay attention to it, and we did. And it was great. But this is just stupid. And good for her for deleting. Good for the school for protecting her, saying, well, she's just heartbroken. She is not. Just stop. So she's smoking weed in a car like those towers, and this is what college athletics has become. It is. It is. I mean, there used to be a time where, and again, I hearken back to it, well, you're just old. No, not really. I mean, there are numerous studies where you're driving in a car and people are smoking weed and it's not good for your driving skills. I'm not saying she was or is, but she's certainly advocating for it. And the reason it hit me is yesterday I'm driving down the street. We've become a third world country. I'm driving down the street and some dude opens his window and it's like a Cheech and Chong movie. And next thing you know, it just comes into our car and our doors were closed. We're a third world country. We just smoke weed everywhere, dogs everywhere. I mean, what the hell? Next thing you know, people are going to go into stores without shoes and shirts. I mean, let's just become idiots, complete, total idiots. So good for this girl deciding that she's going to take it down. But LSU continues to embarrass itself because they won a championship. Yay! All right. The NBA, it's true. They won a championship, so all of a sudden oh, wow. Got to act like idiots. How about act like you've done something, like you've been there before? How about not acting like a complete foolish, dumbass program? Grow up a little bit and get your coach on board with you. But anyway, I digress. I know that's an unpopular thing, and kids will be kids. And I heard today, well, they have a right to free speech. Yes, they do, and so do I, and I have a right to criticize. So there you go. Don't at me about it. The Bob Huggins thing is still lingering out there, day 2. I don't think West Virginia is going to fire him. I'm going to get to the NBA playoffs here in a minute. I don't think West Virginia is going to fire him. I don't. I don't think West Virginia... what's the right word? Not that they don't care. I mean, they care because it blew up and now they got to deal with it. But West Virginia is West Virginia. I mean, and Bob Huggins is their sensei. Bob Huggins hasn't come higher than 5th now that they're in a major conference, in their conference, and they have been awful. And he, when he's on the sidelines, is a complete embarrassment. I mean, just look at the slob. I mean, he's had DUI, he's got this. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But hey, look, he's a Hall of Famer, everybody tells me. So when you're a Hall of Famer, everybody tells me, then you're the man. So we'll see what happens, but I doubt that he'll be fired. He'll be punished. They'll ask him to give up, one of his cars. Give a speech. Go meet with LGQTB, whatever leaders. Yay, yeah, go get them, Bobby. Hell, people got mad at me because I just told some woman I wouldn't go in the pool with her. I wouldn't go at it in the pool. Everybody lost their mind. Norby was on the phone from ESPN. Oh, okay, Norby. All right. NBA playoffs last night. I'm going to show you a really cool video. A really cool video. You're going to like the video that I'm going to show you because it's men being men. Last night, you never thought you'd see it. You never thought you'd see it, but I saw it for myself last night. The Boston Celtics quit. And they didn't quit because they wanted to quit. They quit because the Philadelphia 76ers said, you're not as good as us. You can keep driving to the hole against Joel Embiid, and Joel Embiid's going to keep swatting your business. You can keep doing those things that you were doing, and Joel Embiid's going to keep hitting jump shots. You can keep messing around and not showing up early in the game like Jason Tatum or like Kevin Durant in the second game, and you're going to get your brains beat out. It is literally that simple. Hey, I don't know if you saw this, and we talked about it the other day. When you are on the road and you are the road team, there is nothing better than what? What? That's right. The sound of silence. Silencia. Nothing. The crowd fired up, going crazy. And then all of a sudden, about halfway through the fourth quarter, you saw it, I saw it, and we'll talk to C.J. Watson, 10-year NBA vet. We'll talk to him about that exact thing. You're the road team. You're the Sixers. You look up in those stands, and you see, adios. File it out. All the people that were yelling, screaming, cussing, gone. What did an NBA coach or a college coach call his own fans? Rats leaving a sinking ship. Well, duh. Got to get home. It's a school night. You kidding me? What the hell are we going to sit around and why are we going to watch this when you got no chance? Now, of course, Jay Williams says Joe Mazzulla, the coach of the Celtics, has lost the team. What? He's getting his brains beat out. It happens. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Tatum with 36 and 10, Brown with 24, but they look like a JV squad yesterday against the Sixers who look really good. Tyrese Maxey, my goodness. Why hasn't Kentucky won more? I mean, all these dudes in the damn NBA playoffs are just showing out. Tyrese Maxey looks like a young Isaiah Thomas for crying out loud. He don't care. It's fascinating to watch. It really is. It's really fascinating. We'll talk to C.J. Watson about just that. I like getting players' perspective on things. Normally, and we'll see if C.J. does, normally people that play don't want to criticize too much, but maybe they have a better understanding than me. But anyway, you don't see it often. You don't see it on the parquet. But the Celtics quit. And one of the reasons they quit was because Joel Embiid is back. Look, I didn't follow it enough to know who the MVP was, who the MVP should have been, whether it was a racial thing or not. I didn't follow it enough. I know that when the big stupid talks, I don't listen. Who's the big stupid? The big stupid is, of course, Kendrick Perkins. When he talks, I don't know why anybody would listen. But that doesn't matter. Joel Embiid hit threes. Joel Embiid hit pull-ups. Joel Embiid went in the post. Joel Embiid hit mid-range. Joel Embiid was absolutely fantastic yesterday. Good for him. I mean, he seems like a really nice guy. He seems like a good dude. So, long story short, we'll see what happens. But as of yesterday, they flat quit. With a Q, it. Quit. Period. Nuggets 118, Suns 102. Kevin Durant and Jokic got in a little skirmish on the sideline, but that's not the story. The story is dudes being dudes. See, I always say this. The Bob Knight, now Bob Hamel, we're going to shun you. No. When we have a problem, I'm not talking to him. Oh, okay. Wow. See, Ishbia, Matt Ishbia, the owner of the Suns, we all know, famously flopped in a confrontation over the basketball on courtside seats with Nikola Jokic. Next thing you know, the world blows up. Nobody's suspended, which I like. Little bit of fine for Jokic. But this happened yesterday before the game. Check this out. This is what men are supposed to do in conflict. Go ahead. That's Jokic. He hands Ishbia the ball. They hug. There you go. Yeah. You make jokes of the conflict. You don't sit there and go, well, you know, he was mean to me. I'm not talking to him. The other day, legendary writer Bob Hamel, not the other day, earlier in the football season, I was sitting up in the press box. Hamel's mad at me because I made fun of his love of Bob. Now, he gets me on the shun. He put me on the shun, ladies and gentlemen. I don't like the shun. Instead of walking like a man and coming over and saying, hey, I don't like you. And I say, I don't like you. And they would have hugged it out. But men do that. Look, there was a shove, there was a flop, there was a fine. Hey, big whoop, as they say. Who gives a rat's? I like it. And then, of course, Jokic went out and kicked the living crap out of the Suns. He did. I mean, what do you want me to tell you? My Serbian brother. Every time he does something good, you know what? Hey, if Stephen A. Smith, Jay Will, Foxworthy can go overboard in defending their, quote, people, that's their quote, I can defend my people. That's right. It wasn't Jokic's fault. It's never Jokic's fault. It was the owner's fault. It's my Serbian brother, my people. Oh, man, I absolutely love it. I do. I love it. I love that Embiid's playing. I love that there's no social justice stuff. As Jonathan Hutton said the other day, there's no LeBron James holding up a third page into Malcolm X so that he looks like he's some sort of activist. None of that. There's just some good ball. And now the Sixers are one game away from reaching the conference finals for the first time since 2001. I don't know about you, but damn, that's pretty good. Is that Pete Davidson on the left and Lizzie on the right of Ishbia? I don't know. Well, speaking of that, don't let anybody tell you that being fat is healthy. Don't even let that enter your mind. Being fat is anything but healthy. Being fat is horrible for you. Lizzo. You're fat, get in shape, you're unhealthy. Speaking as a fat guy, unhealthy. Quick word, Denny Crum passed away at 86. Personally, I'm a big Denny Crum fan. When all the coaches used to gather in Vegas, everybody went to Vegas for AAU tournaments. Every morning I would walk out, get my car at the Flamingo, and there would be Coach Crum dressed and ready to go to recruit. Oh, no. No, he had his golf clubs with him. He had his golf clubs with him and his wife that was about, I think it was second wife, 20, 30 years young. He's a stud. And then, you know what? Somehow, some way, Denny Crum would go get great players. And Denny Crum would end up in the Final Four. It's like what he did is like his job was just simply, hey, look, I'm going to get to the Final Four, period. The rest of us are just simply going to go and play basketball. But he went 8 times. Was on John Wooden's staff, so he knew his way around it. John Wooden knew his way around it, baby, and so did Denny Crum. So anyway, long story short, rest in peace, 86 years old, Denny Crum passed away yesterday, a true legend in the world of college basketball. There's a lot of fake legends. Speaking of that, hey, Ryan, let's hear the audio from our boy Huggy. Let's give Huggy, let's see what if Huggy's stupidity from yesterday or 2 days ago has changed. Let's hear from Huggy.
Have you poached any Xavier guys to come to play for West Virginia?
Catholics don't do that.
No, we're above the fracas, aren't we? No problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I tell you what, any school that can throw rubber penises on the floor and then say they didn't do it, by God, they can get away with anything.
Rubber penis. Was this
I think it's a crosstown shootout, wasn't it?
It was transgender night, wasn't it?
What?
Was that it?
It was a crosstown shootout. Yeah, no, what it was all those Catholic actually.
All right.
They were envious they didn't have one.
That's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. West Virginia folks are defending Huggy Bear. I got a guy, and I said, look, pal, fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life. Some guy on YouTube, he's just mad. But anyway, long story short, fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life. All right, the Blackhawks hadn't even drafted Connor Bedard. But the Blackhawks, because Connor Bedard, do you know the name? I don't know the name. I do know the name now. I do. I know the name now because Connor Bedard is going to be the first pick of the draft. He plays for the Regina Pats of the Western League. He's a junior hockey player. And guess what? People are fascinated with this kid. People are already lining up outside the United Center when Kyle Davidson drafted him. Number one pick in the draft. Connor Bedard will be the number one pick in the draft, and people are lining up to get this 17-year-old stuff. That's right. 17 years old, the dude is rocking and rolling. The dude is a stud. $12.5 million is what he eventually will get paid. He looks like a 10-year-old, plays like Gretzky. I'm a Chicago Blackhawks fan, so Connor Bedard is the man. He will always be the man. He'll be our next Kaner. He'll be our next Kaner, and we'll get ourselves a couple of cups. Back to the NBA playoffs real quick. You know what else you haven't seen in these playoffs? You haven't seen niceness. I wanted to get into this. You know, when I talk to people about the NBA, the one thing that they got tired of was the entire, banana boat, Chris Paul, Durant, the whole Paul George with his nose right up LeBron James's backside. We got angst. You see Jamal Murray right there? We got real angst in our NBA playoffs. I don't need niceness in my NBA playoffs. I don't need niceness in my NFL, my Major League Baseball. You hit a home run off of me, you jack around, you're getting one in the hip. You catch a ball at shortstop, you flip it to yourself, you throw it, next time you come up, I'm buzzing the tower. I don't care if you don't agree with that. NBA playoffs, Jokic and Durant go into the sideline. They start, I don't know, it's not serious, but it's serious enough. They're going on, we're going to throw hand, we're going to fight. All right, great. The owner gets himself a point or two, and he ends up flopping. That's the stuff that we need. That's the that goes back. Even though Magic and Isaiah used to kiss on the cheek, okay, I get it. And then they would fight like crazy people and get themselves in a position where it was absolute war between the two. Well, war in a sports sense, not war in an actual sense. You get the difference. But the fact of the matter is, we've got some of that in the NBA right now. And I ain't mad about it. Look, Jokic invites it. Durant frustrated. And that's good because when you're frustrated, that means it means something to you. Remember, these guys are making so much money, it would be easy to say, hey, it's all right, man. I'm going to go buy an island. What are you going to do today? I don't know. I think I'll go buy an island. What the hell? But no. They are really fighting tooth and nail. And Jokic, tremendous last night. Embiid, tremendous last night. The Suns, not so much, down most of the game. The Nuggets, terrific. And as I said earlier, the Celtics quit at home. Now, one other thing about the angst. The NBA's got to do away with this stupid rule, or they got to put a rule in. This started in AAU. Guys are huddling. All right? Yesterday, the Suns were huddling. And Jokic comes over, and he wants to peek in. He wants to listen in. He wants to listen in on the huddle. That's child's play. That's AAU. We had a kid do that. So some kid from Cincinnati did that on my AAU team. And I said, all right, get in here. I said, I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to go right at this kid here. He was number 22. I said, we're going to go at 22. He's the worst player out here. He's a horrible defender. And the kid was in he was in our huddle trying to do that crap. And he's like, oh, he was shocked. Like, he thought he was getting over on me. Please. Child, please. C.J. Watson is going to join us coming up here in a minute. C.J. was with the Pacers. He was really good. C.J. played a long, long time. You guys, a lot of Tennessee folks around these parts, you remember C.J. At Tennessee. Is C.J. ready? I want to make sure. I see that he's joined the chat here. I just want to make sure C.J. Is ready and all set. But anyway, long story short, I do believe the NBA's got to put in a rule for that. I mean, let's be honest. Guys are huddling, and here goes Jokic in the huddle. I mean, that's AAU stuff. Good for Durant getting his ass out of there. C.J. Watson, stud. He's nice enough to join us. Loved you when you were with the Pacers. I'm here in Indy. Congratulations on a great career. I was just talking about this. So the Suns are huddling. Jokic is big dumbass. He goes in there because he wants to listen in. It's a childish... You can't do that. That's AAU stuff, CJ, and I'm glad Durant shoved him out of there.
Yeah, it's good for basketball, good drama, but there's no rules against it. You can always go in there, especially if they're on the court talking. You can go over there and listen to what they're talking about. Get an advantage some kind of way. But like I said, I like the added drama for the series.
I like angst in my. I don't know about you, but you know what? I grew up. NBA basketball, 80s, 90s, Isaiah and Magic would kiss and then try to beat the living hell out of each other. How much have you seen? Like, I thought the Sixers made the Celtics quit at the end and their fans are walking out. How do the Celtics respond? Let's go there first.
They just got to come out more poised, I feel like, and more under control. I think Marcus Smart has to have a big game for them to win. Jason Tatum and Brown are going to be aggressive, but all the others, like Shaq would always say, the others have to do their part and step up and help the superstars out.
Who's been the best player in your mind so far in these playoffs?
You would have to say Jokic so far, or maybe even LeBron or Anthony Davis when he comes to play. I think those guys are all unstoppable. When they're aggressive, when they're on their A game, and when they're on their A game, the whole team's on their A game, so that makes the team even better.
CJ, how remarkable is it? You played 10, 12 years. How remarkable is it what LeBron's doing at 38?
It's crazy. Just the stuff he's out there doing, the speed he's running at, and obviously he's 6'9" and 2 whatever, but he's definitely still. One of the best at his position at his age, and still can jump with the young guys, still can run with the young guys, and he's doing things that we never seen before, and we'll probably continue to never see.
He's massive when you see him in person. Yeah. Like people think that he's right. I mean, can you describe that?
Yeah, like I said, he looks like a big lineman or a fullback, but just like I said, in shape. 265 wherever he is, and 6'9", he can run 4 whatever flat, jump as high as anyone else, strong as an ox. So like I said, he's just down there just punishing people and he's playing the game, making it so simple for others. He's shooting when he needs to shoot. When he's double teamed, he passes the ball and makes the right play.
You mentioned when Anthony Davis comes to play as a teammate. Is it frustrating? And if so, how frustrating is it when you see a guy of his immense ability And, you don't know what you're going to get. You know what you're going to get out of James. You know what you're going to get, out of most. But how frustrating is that, or how frustrating isn't that?
I mean, I feel like as a teammate, as a former player, you don't really get frustrated with him as much. I think it's more so like fans and stuff like that. But for him, it's for like a teammate, I feel like it's just he's put so much pressure on his shoulders, and to be able to go out there and go for 30 and 20 every night is a hard job to do, especially in the NBA. So I think, like I said, as a teammate, I'm sure they just give him the ball when they can, support him when they can, and just hope he stays healthy. I think that's the biggest thing.
Well, you played forever, and one of the things that I've said is I coached in college forever. The NCAA tournament is great, no question. But one of the things that in my mind makes the NBA playoffs better is the crazy home crowds. As a professional, do you hear the crowd? Does the crowd impact? I know it does on college kids. How does that affect professionals?
Affects you the same way. You still hear the crowd. You still hear the fans yelling obscene gestures at you during the game. Definitely the home crowd is definitely an advantage, I feel like, especially in certain arenas and circumstances. But like I said, it's always fun for me to go on the road and win on the road, especially in the playoffs. The playoffs was very hectic. Every possession matters, so it's a lot more than a line.
I always said the best sound that you can have last night, the Sixers, is the sound of silence by the crowd in Boston, right? When you don't hear them, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Watching people file out that have been screaming at you for 2 hours, dropping the F-bombs, MFing you, and then you got to watch their ass walking up the aisles, brother. Ain't nothing better than that, I don't think. Describe that if you would.
Yeah, that's like one of the greatest feelings. Like I said before, I feel like the best feeling is playing on the road and seeing the fans talk trash to you the whole game, and then walking out, shamefully not saying a word, and then you get the laugh of the night, just walking to the locker room, with a win, and a hard fought win, I'm sure. And like I said, that's just the best feeling as an athlete.
How hard is it to not tell a fan to go F himself?
It's hard because they're able to yell at you while you're at your job, and you can't do the same thing to them. You can't go go to their job and yell at them saying they're doing a terrible job of what they're supposed to be doing, or they're having an off night, stuff like that. So it takes a lot of patience as an athlete just to not go off on fans and stuff like that. But I think it's good for the game, and like I said, it makes the game even more fun when you can win and shut the fans up.
Hey, what do you see happening here? Can you tell me what's going on in the Miami-New York series? Miami seems to be on a heater here.
Yeah, Miami's just playing harder. I think they don't have the best roster top to bottom, but they just play hard. They play smart. Eric Spoelstra is one of the best coaches in the game, and Jimmy Butler just shows you night in and night out why he's a superstar. Like I said, he has those guys playing hard, following his lead, and they're just about to maybe close the series out.
Did you see this coming from Jimmy Butler?
Yeah, for sure. Jimmy always steps up. Jimmy was one of my teammates, so he always steps up in big time moments like this. He's not going to let his team lose, and especially he hears the doubters and the haters saying that they're not going to do anything. They're not going to be win a series. So I think it's definitely in the back of his head every time, and I think he's taking that and running with it.
Duncan Robinson was my son's college roommate at Michigan, and Duncan told me, he goes, I love Jimmy Butler. I don't like Jimmy Butler. I love Jimmy Butler. There is no part of me, Duncan said, there's no part of me that would ever F with Jimmy Butler. I would never screw with Jimmy Butler because that's a bad man, he said.
Yeah, Jimmy's funny, man. He's like I said, he's great as a teammate. He's great as a leader. He's going to push you regardless if you want to be pushed or not. He's going to tell you when you suck and when you're playing great. And like I said, he's one of the best to play with because the band that he wants, he doesn't ask anything of you that he wouldn't do himself.
Last thing before I let you go, what's going on with the Knicks? Are the Knicks just not as good?
Yeah, like I said, I just think they're not as good right now. They got some injuries that's probably hurting them, I think. And maybe probably the outside shooting is probably not as great also. So I think, they got some, not necessarily some soul searching to do, but they got to find a couple more pieces to put around Jalen Brunson and Randall. That's going to be their core too.
Yeah, when I watch that series, it's kind of shocking. It looks like, actually, as an 8 seed, it looks like to me the Heat have more pieces, I guess I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, more pieces, more. And like I said, Eric Spoelstra is a genius at constructing game plans and making his guys work with what he has. And he's been doing that ever since he got there. And he's going to, I feel like, continue to do that.
Hey, CJ, appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on.
No, thank you. Appreciate it.
No, that was fun. Go to QuietStorm_32 and give CJ Watson a follow. Terrific NBA player, great insight on all things that are happening. Can the Warriors come back from 3-1? I'm losing my backside gambling here this week, so I've stopped. You know what? I know when enough is enough. I do. I know when enough is enough. I changed credit cards. You ever do this? I changed credit cards, and now I've got all these alerts. I lost my credit card, so I get a new one. Now I got all these alerts saying, hey, your payment was denied, right? Because I changed credit cards, and that credit card is no longer in use. So I got a 9-hour drive today going out to Princeton. I'm going to get credit cards. I'm going to be tweeting. Let's go. Hit the damn subscribe and like button. We got to get to 1 million subscribers. We're over 800,000 here on OutKick. I think we can get to over 1 million by next week, and hit the like button here because it helps our show. We'll be right back. I got a lot to get to, including Chris the Bear Felica. Ladies and gentlemen, the Bear is going to join us. NBA schedules are out. And let me ask you a question. In my world, week 10, the Colts are going to Germany. Do you like that? Do you like that for your team? I liked it about, 10 years ago. My daughter, my stepdaughter, my wife, we all went out to England, and we had a great time. We went to London. We had a great time. Not a good time. We had a great time. But do you really like all of this Europe football? Burgess Owens came on our show, and he made the comment that, the NFL has tapped out the United States market, meaning they can't find more revenue streams. So now they're going across the country, across the world, across the pond. Now it started out in London. Now it's in Germany. I don't know. I feel like I get it. That's what they're trying to do, make every dime. But damn, take away a home game from somebody, particularly a place like Indianapolis where we need the downtown revenue. I don't like that. We'll be right back. I don't like it at all.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you're not really going to believe this next story, but this, ladies and gentlemen, is why golf is king. Nah, seriously, it's why you don't have in golf really dirtbags. You just don't. There's a guy named Tommy Kuhl, Kuhl. Tommy Kuhl, well, he disqualified himself from the U.S. Open after shooting a 62. So Tommy Kuhl goes out. He's University of Illinois golfer. He shot a course record, 62 at the Illini Country Club in Springfield. He disqualified himself. Why did he disqualify himself? Well, after his round, he was walking with his Illini teammates on the course. They were following one of their other teammates. Listen to this. The talk turned to how difficult putting was on the aerated greens at Springfield. When Kuhn heard that, he knew he was likely disqualified. He had repaired aeration marks on the green multiple times. The rule for fixing spark marks has been modified, but not the rule for fixing aeration marks. Under the rules of golf, golfers are allowed to fix damage on the putting green, but that does not include normal practices for maintaining the overall condition of the putting green, aeration holes, grooves from vertical mowing. All right. It was amended to say that almost any damage on the green includes ball marks, shoe marks, indentations from a club, flagstick, animal damage, but it does not include aeration, nor did it include natural surface imperfections or natural wear on the hole. There are some occasions where a local rule will allow that. Well, guess what? That was not at the Illini Country Club. So you know what? Kuhl turned himself in, said he couldn't have lived with himself if he didn't turn himself in. I should know better. It comes down to me. I should know the rule. There you go. He's a stand-up guy, Nick Hardy said. He's a stand-up dude. Yeah, he is. He's a stand-up dude. He turned himself in, cost himself a chance at a lifetime dream, which is playing in the U.S. Open. As a fifth-year college student, how cool would that be? No pun intended. But the fact of the matter is, golf does that. Like, I've told you stories about me. Actually, yesterday, I was playing with a friend of mine. We were playing in a men's league. And my friend thought we were playing a scramble where both of us hit, we take the best ball, then we both hit from that same spot. We were playing best ball. He picked up the ball. Nobody knew. The other guys were off somewhere. And I'm like, hey, man, we're playing best ball. You know, we're not playing a scramble. He goes, oh, crap. So I went over to the guys. I explained it to the two guys. They were over in the woods. And they said, yeah, no problem, because they didn't, you know, it's not qualifying for the U.S. Open, right? It's not that. So long story short, but you always have to, in my opinion, play by the rules, explain the rules in golf. Now, I have friends. Calvin Sampson used to cheat. Calvin Sampson was a golf cheat. First time I ever played with him, we were playing a couple guys. He's punching up the ball. He's moving. He's doing all this stuff. And I remember telling the great Don Fisher, the announcer, I go, Sampson's a bad guy. I'd been there about a week. I knew he was a bad guy, but I didn't know he would cheat in golf. Sampson also didn't pay J.R. Holmes one time. We were playing J.R. Holmes, who was the coach at Bloomington South, and we lost $7 is all it was. And J.R. and Scott Turner, his partner, I paid Scotty the 7, or maybe it was 17. I don't know. I paid Scott, and I look, and Sampson's putting his clubs in the bag, and he's going to our office, the Indiana basketball office. Well, nay, Nanook. My man wasn't having it. J.R. Holmes said, screw this, he's paying me. Now it was personal. So JR got in his car. And I said, I got to see this. The golf course is about 3 miles away from our office. JR in pursuit of Samson. Samson has no idea. Samson's well ahead. Samson gets to the office. I get to the office. Here comes JR. Hey, coach. Goes right in his arm. You owe me $7. It was awesome. And that's why I never, ever, 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 ever would trust Calvin Sampson to do anything, anytime, anywhere, ever. Period. You don't cheat in golf. Fast pay makes fast friends. And good for this kid here. Tommy Cool showed what you are supposed to do. Period. Don't at me. Period. That's it. For some reason, listen to this. The White House has banned the New York Post from showing up at the White House. This is awesome. Is there anything better? Every single day, every day, the New York Post, or some newspaper actually, the New York Post is the only one that's telling us the truth, which is amazing to me. But the White House doesn't like it. The White House doesn't like it even for a second. They don't like that they are reporting, the New York Post are reporting on Hunter Biden. They don't like the fact that they're not in pocket. And you know what you don't hear from any of the legacy media? You don't hear anything about it. You don't hear any crickets. They barred the Post from attending Biden's only daytime public event Monday as federal prosecutors near a decision on criminally charging first son, Hunter Biden, for tax fraud and other crimes. The Post is the only one covering this. They have closely covered the president's ties to his relatives' foreign dealings starting in October of 2020. I don't see Gannett out here covering it. Why? They're in pocket. I don't see little Greggy Doyle and the minions at the Indy Star covering anything other than now Chris Ballard's great. It's unbelievable. Biden, who falsely characterized the Post reporting as Russian disinformation, appeared with Pete Buttigieg to talk about airline policies in the White House Eisenhower Executive Office building. Biden, of course, took no questions because Biden is an idiot. Ultimately, no question, it's the fake White House, 50 theater seats for reporters, 20 of which were empty Monday. And guess what? Nobody wants to cover it. The Post has the 5th largest news website readership, the 5th largest in the country. Take out MSN, which is just an agitator, and you got the 4th. It's the nation's 2nd most read newspaper online, 5th largest print circulation. And Biden, we are unable to accommodate your credentialed request to attend the Investing in Airline Accountability remarks on 5/8. The remarks will be live streamed and can be viewed at wh.gov. Thank you for understanding. 20 empty press seats. Of course, it wasn't due to space limitations. Sometimes at Indiana games or Kentucky games or at big-time sporting events, all of a sudden all of the press wants to come out and you don't have the room. So you have to, but of course, that's not what has happened. Of course, Joe Biden, when he talks about Hunter Biden, says, he'll be fine. He's done nothing wrong. It'll be interesting because one of the most interesting things to do is to watch documentaries or watch shows that aren't documentaries, that are fiction. Let's just say they're fiction. And watch how corrupt governments are. Our government is. I was watching the White House plumbers last night, and I know all the names in there. I know G. Gordon Liddy, Howard Hunt, Ellsbury. I know all these guys, right? I've followed this. I actually watched the Watergate hearings as like a 10-year-old because I was mad that game shows weren't on. So I learned the names. But it's always fascinating, two things. How corrupt our government is always fascinating. And how dumb we are at committing crimes in our government. So Hunter Biden left the paper trail. Dumb and Dumber, you see him on the right here of our screen. They both think they will be exonerated. Well, if they're exonerated, then it's just another deal where our government is corrupt and the people doing the exoneration are bought and paid for, if in fact you have read any of this. If you haven't read any of this, I suggest you do, and I suggest that you go ahead and read it in the New York Post, because they, ladies and gentlemen, are like OutKick. They are unafraid. And like OutKick, they get their soul crushed on a daily basis. They just do. And there's nothing wrong with that. The questions were asked of the White House. They were asked to respond to why the Post was not included. And, of course, they got stonewalled. So there you go. All right. Long story short, I want to see what happens, because right now with Hunter Biden, we're in two spaces. One, is the federal government going to charge him with tax fraud? And two, and it's always interesting to me, with the baby mama. The baby mama drama in the world that we live in is spectacular. You know it. I know it. And Hunter Biden's got baby mama drama. Hunter Biden can pay $48,000 a month to his father in a money laundering scheme. He can't. But he can't afford a baby. Can't afford Uncle Joe's 7th grandchild who he disavows. Yeah. Hey, this is interesting. Each day this week, for the next week, our friend Riley Gaines is going to call on well-known female athletes to take a stand on the issue of transgender boys playing against women. Riley Gaines says this: each day for the next week, I'm going to call on well-known female athletes to take a stand on this issue, because silence is complicity. We need their voices. Day 2, Ronda Rousey. How do you feel about men competing against women? Now, to this point, Ronda Rousey, who has not one, not two, but 3.3 million followers on Twitter, has not responded. Ronda Rousey, we would like to hear from you. We women, and I include myself, need your help. Ronda Rousey, where are you? We're waiting on you. You're tough. You're strong. First day that she did this, Riley Gaines asked the Williams sisters, Serena and Venus, what's going on? She says this: please tag them so it can't be ignored. Again, the silence is deafening. Look, we all know that Serena Williams and Venus Williams and Ronda Rousey and all these others aren't going to say jack squat. Why? Because they are all about the green and their careers are basically over. That's why you saw Megan Rapinoe. Of course that's why you saw Megan Rapinoe. Megan Rapinoe don't care anymore. Sue Bird doesn't care anymore. Ronda Rousey, where you at? Venus and Serena, where you at? How about a little support? I haven't heard Doris Burke talking about it, or maybe I just missed it. All right, the Oakland A's. Remember last week, the Oakland A's? We were talking about the Oakland A's. They were going to move to Vegas. The Oakland A's said, hey, we're moving to Vegas. They are? Yeah, we're moving to Vegas. Well, they didn't say that. What they actually said was, we're going to buy land and move to Vegas. Well, now they completely changed their agreement. And I don't blame them. Look, if I'm the Oakland A's, the one thing that I am doing, if I'm the ownership group, I'm getting this right. Like, think about the Oakland A's for just a second. The Oakland A's have one shot to get this right. They do not have two shots. You make a move, you better figure out Vegas is better than Orlando. You better figure out Vegas is better than Nashville. And you better figure out what the best site is, because what you are trying to do is save yourself Well, you're trying to save your franchise. And what you're also trying to do is you're trying to save billions of dollars by not only moving to a place, making your business grow. So we've seen these things where, a guy bought a franchise for $500 million, now it's worth $2 billion, things like that. And that's what the Oakland A's are trying to do here. So here's what they did. They're changing plans after reevaluating the financial circumstances. The club has reached a new agreement with casino operators Bally's for a $1.5 billion, with a B, stadium on the site of the Tropicana Casino. Used to be the Tropicana was this place way out there, more of a modern, more of an old school place, those of you that have been to Vegas. Well, not anymore. I mean, the Tropicana is kind of an outdated place. So the deal would see Bally's demolish the Tropicana, allow the A's a 35,000-seat retractable roof stadium on 9 acres. It's a part of a 34-acre site. Bally's would construct a 1,500-room hotel and casino across from the stadium, separate from the ballpark. This undoes the 49 acres of land near the Strip that they were going to buy from Red Rock. Look, why is this interesting? It's interesting to me because my entire life I was told you can't have sports in Vegas. You can't have sports in Vegas. No sports in Vegas. Really? Last I looked, there were 7 basketball tournaments the NCAA was putting on in Vegas, 5 conference tournaments, and then a couple, feast week type tournaments. So not having sports in Vegas is long since gone, baby. Long gone. And I got to tell you, I kind of like it. I do. I kind of like it. Dan, the YouTube chat is asking 35,000 seats. Yeah, I know. That does not seem like a lot. It doesn't seem like a lot at all. In fact, a lot of these stadiums, Wrigley Field is about, I think at capacity, they go 39 to 40, something like that. I would guess that it's going to be one of those deals where you've got all kind of suites, you've got all kind of amenities that are going to be in place to generate revenue for the team that ticket losses or ticket sales don't cover. That would be my guess, not that I'm right. But anyway, long story short, that's what's happening. Brad Buffington chimes in on the YouTube chat. Listen to this. It is Wednesday, so I'm going to give you What the Hell Wednesday. Brad Buffington, who's one of my favorites, Wisconsin farmer, follows us on YouTube every day. I was impressed with my golf partner last night. He drank 12 beers, chewed tobacco, smoked cigarettes while shooting a 34. Pretty good. No, that's really good. Yesterday I shot a 37 and I went the other way. I had a bunch of stuff to do after in a men's league, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to have a beer. I'm going to bring myself a, sports drink, a zero, whatever it is. I brought that. I got myself a water, went out, missed a birdie putt on 18, or I would have shot 30. I would have shot even par. So I went opposite. But I got to tell you, Brad, your guy is much more impressive. Jennifer chimes in. Hey, Dan, what about those Cardinals? Cardinals suck, and apparently the Cubs suck worse. I'm watching yesterday. Home run, center field, Cubs game tied. Morel hits it. He's a nice young prospect. Cubs game tied. I turn it. I flip over. Playoffs just for a minute. I flip back at 6-4, and the Cubs are losing. And Jennifer's gloating. I saw last night there was an L flag. All right, we're going to come back. I want to make sure we're set because Felica is going to join us coming up here at the top of the hour. Chris Felica is going to give us our over-unders on the season, what he thinks about the new NFL schedule. That's right, Chris Felica, the Bear, is with Fox now. We'll be right back.
Recently, many people on the right have been accusing myself and Chris of being paid by the DNC, and we just wanted to come on and say that's an incredibly dumb thing to think. And look, if the DNC is handing out checks, We should be first in line to receive them, but that's simply not happening, and we haven't received a dime from the DNC. And we want to make it clear, we're perfectly happy to work with organizations that share our vision. So if someone reached out to us and say, hey, we're trying to make sure the environment is protected, would love to work with them. But we are simply not working with the DNC, and we want to reiterate that everything that's been posted on social media is public information.
Weird. Some quick research over Federal Election Commission data shows that actually the DNC made payments of over $210,000 to Palette Media, the talent agency that represents, you guessed it, the wannabe Backstreet Boys, Harry Sisson and Chris Mowry. And while I wish I could just continue to sit here and make fun of them and others like them because it's oh so easy, they wield a lot of power with young people, and underestimating their reach and their influence would be a mistake. As Republicans, conservatives, Trumpers, ultra-megas, whatever you want to call us, we cannot ignore this, and we cannot ignore Gen Z or millennial voters any longer. If we keep catering to old people and boomers, we will lose. If we keep thinking the RNC strategy of just throwing fancy donor dinners for rich white people will do the trick, we're going to find out the hard way when we lose again. We must show up on college campuses. We must be active on social media. We must fight for the hearts and the minds of young people and meet them where they are, one app at a time. I've dedicated much of my career to that very goal, and y'all know I'm going to fight like hell to reach them, but I can't do it alone. Conservatives came together and tanked Bud Light sales by 26%. We should for damn sure be able to take that same energy and transfer it to our election strategy. If we lose in 2024 to Joe freaking Biden because we refuse to get crafty and play the game, we don't deserve to continue our existence as a party. So get your iPhones out, folks. We've got work to do.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, he's the best addition to Fox Sports in the history of Fox Sports. That's right, I said it. Chris Felica, a.k.a. The Bear. Let's just put it on a billboard. The greatest addition to Fox Sports in the history of Fox Sports. There he is, big boy. Fresh
I'll take
off,
it.
Just winning a ton of money in Vegas.
No.
At the Derby.
Or the other way around, my man. Or the other way around. Yeah, we went to the Oaks and Derby this past weekend, and it was a nice little hemorrhaging money experience. But it's amazing how it always seems like you're one leg or one win away from a huge score. That's actually what happened to me on Friday. I needed Secret Oath, a filly who won the Oaks last year, to win, and she just lost a photo. And that probably was was a well into 5-figure swing. So you may come out a loser, but you're that close to winning. That's why you keep going back.
That is exactly. It's like golf. You hit a great shot late, and you're like, oh, man, next time it's going to happen. I just needed a little more track, and I thought the 14 was going to win the Derby, and I was sitting there just like, because you can't. When you're watching on TV, they show you this, and you can't really see where the finish line is, but you know it's coming. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean, Bear? Just give me a little more. Anyway, let me ask you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the interesting thing is at the track, they have a really cool drone shot where you get like the view of the leader to where the runner-up is. And a lot of times in the stretch, if you just see that normal pan shot, it looks closer than it actually is. And then you see the drawing, like, wow, they actually do have a little bit more to make up than you actually think they do. But yeah, Angel of Empire ran huge.
Oh, man, I was screaming because I had put too much money on Angel's Empire. Anyway, Bear, NFL games in Europe. Now, I'm going to ask you three different ways. Anyway, as a fan of your team, do you like it? 2, as a fan of the league, do you like it? And what's the impact of, an 8-whatever-hour flight and a game in Europe? What's the betting impact on that?
As a fan of my team, I don't like it because I would prefer to see my team play a home game and or not have to travel to London or Germany, as opposed to, just for example, the Jets play New England. I would much rather have the Jets have a road trip at New England than having to fly to London and play a road trip there. As a fan of the league, I think it's kind of cool because I think it does add a little bit of cachet to the games, and I think maybe you get a little bit of a worldwide view. And as a bettor, I think it makes it a little murkier. It's not exactly as clean of a handicap because you don't know how teams are going to handle the jet lag and how soon they're going to have to go over there. And I think the league has done a good job of giving the teams the choice of, do they want to buy before? Do they want to buy after? So they try and do as good of a job as they can. But someone who travels a lot, I know that second day going over there is kind of hellish in terms of being able to stay awake and get yourself acclimated to the time that you're currently on, which is 5 or 6 hours ahead of East Coast time here.
The schedule, when it comes out, I got guys showing me over-unders right now on teams. I'm sitting here going, wait a second here. I'm not sure I would take an over-under until the day before the season starts.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that are getting really excited about the season win totals. It's hard to do because some of the things you just have to look for with the schedules are just the sequencing of the games, and until you know the sequencing of the games, you really can't like, the opponents, but you don't know is it a back-to-back, is it a short week, and that's with the new TV rules as well, being able to be some of the flex games that go on. It makes it a lot tougher to get a grasp on some of these season win totals because, look at last year, for example. There were people that thought that the Seahawks were going to be one of the worst teams in the league, and they wound up in the playoffs. So, the NFL is such a hard thing to do because every year it seems like there's a team that was in last place the previous year that winds up having a great year, and there's a team that everybody thinks is going to stink that winds up winning 8-9 games.
Jets fans, very excited. What do you expect out of Aaron Rodgers?
I think he's going to have a great year. I think he's got some weapons in New York that he didn't necessarily have in Green Bay last year. I mean, Garrett Wilson is on his way to being one of the elite wide receivers in the league. So I think behind a better offensive line, and you've got a running game with Breece Hall, who is probably going to be the AFC Rookie of the Year, I should say the Offensive Rookie of the Year last year before he got hurt. I think there are a lot of pieces in place with the Jets, and I think for the first time, I think in a while, he's probably pretty motivated about hearing injured, all the off the field drama about going to meditate or whatever it was about what he's going to do. I think he's kind of out to prove that he does have some quality years left, whether it's 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, who knows. I think he's going to have a really good year. And look, as a Jets fan, they needed a quarterback. You could not go into the year with Zach Wilson at quarterback. I mean, that would have created a mutiny, I think, in that locker room and amongst Jets fans. So the Jets needed a quarterback. Did they maybe overpay? Maybe, but at the same time, the ownership, the front office, the coaching staff, they all realized they needed to make a move, and they went out and did what they had to do it.
What about the Bears? You know what I didn't realize? I watched the Bears blow a ton of games last year, and I didn't realize they were only 3-14. Like, if you'd have said how many big games did the Bears win, I'd have said, I don't know, 5 or 6. Justin Fields back. I played golf yesterday with a Bears season ticket holder. He thinks they're the next coming of the '85 Bears, for crying out loud. What are your thoughts?
I think they were really
these guys.
Yeah, it's because I think Field. I mean, that's part of the thing too with a young team that has an inexperienced quarterback, and you kind of learn to make some decisions. And when your offensive line is as bad as it is, it's hard to get those first downs late in games sometimes to really close out games and make plays in the fourth quarter. So we'll see if Justin Fields can improve in the passing game. We'll see if the offensive line can improve and keep him upright, and maybe that will help. But that's a division that I think is going to be as wide open as any division in the league. I mean, if you look at that division now, I mean, the Lions are favored to win that division. So like that tells you right there, it's a group of teams that are in the Vikings. Nobody takes the Vikings seriously after last year. They were kind of the anti-Bears. I mean, they wound up winning all of those close games and pulling games out of their you-know-what all year, whereas the Bears couldn't seem to hold a lead. So I would be cautiously optimistic about the Bears being a bit more improved this year. Again, it just comes down to if Justin Fields can take that step as a passer, because we know he's a great athlete. We know his legs can certainly carry that offense.
I'm gonna ask you this, and it's kind of a ridiculous question, but maybe not. Right now, the largest I've seen in terms of betting over-unders in the NFL is 11.5. Cincinnati's one of the teams, the Bengals, that are at 11.5. What's the line of demarcation? That means you got to go 12-5 minimum to win. What is your line of demarcation? Like, I would never bet the over. Is it 12, 12.5? You know, what would it be?
I think 11, and it would depend on the team, and it would depend on the schedule, who their quarterback is, what their road games potentially look like. I'd have to have a full grasp of the schedule, but at the same time, 12-5 seems like the max that I would consider, because in the division, you know, these teams are so familiar with each other. I mean, you get instances where bad teams beat good teams all the time within division play on their home, so that's a loss that pops up there. And I mean, 12-5 in the NFL is ridiculous. I can tell you that in college, I will not bet a team to go over 11.5. I will not bet a team to go 12-0. I mean, that's just, you have no wiggle room whatsoever. And now 11's a different story. If you find 11 in college football, that allows you a wiggle room where if a team, say Georgia, I don't know if they're going to be 11 or 11.5. I haven't seen yet, but 11's a lot different than 11.5. I would always rather pay extra juice to give yourself a little bit more wiggle room in terms of an over or an under rather than getting maybe a better price at 11.5 or 10.5. I would much rather push at a number as opposed to losing at a number. But yeah, 11.5 in college is a no-go for me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, college is interesting because it used to be that going undefeated was really hard, didn't happen. And now it's like you got to go undefeated or go 11-1 or whatever it is. That's like upper echelon of the Hall of Fame. You do that so many. Like, Bear, I always go to this. A friend of mine who owned the TV rights to Ohio State football and basketball way back said, look, whoever the head coach is going to be at Ohio State is going to win 75% of their games. That's just what history says. Now, you win 75% of your games at Ohio State or Clemson or Georgia or Alabama, you're out, right? It's amazing.
75% is 9-3, and that's like, all right, yeah, we need to get to that 10-11 win. So it's amazing how it's changing. And I think you look at the way the non-conference schedules go now. So many of these Power 5 teams, you get 4 non-conference games or 3, and maybe one of them is against another potential Power 5 team that you could lose. And I think now the bottom of these Power 5 leagues are so diluted and so watered down that they're almost easier at times than some of these Group of 5 teams that you play in the non-conference. But yeah, you look at Ryan Day and Ohio State this year. I mean, losing twice in a row to Michigan. Like these fans are just up in arms right now, and they're a play away from getting to the national championship last year. I mean, they played Georgia better than anyone throughout the course of the regular season did, that's for sure. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with Ohio State having to go to Notre Dame, go to Michigan, break in a new quarterback. Like the fans don't care about that. If they do anything less than probably 11-1, they're going to be up in arms again about what's going on here. We need to get back to the play. We need to win that, even though they're in the damn playoff last year and came within a couple of seconds there of getting to the title game and probably would have won the national championship against TCU.
You know, I always thought, even for Ohio State, that getting in the playoff as a coach covered everything up. You know what I mean? It covered losing to Michigan. It doesn't at Ohio State. It just doesn't.
I mean, four teams do it a year. Like what do you think TCU fans in TCU were focused on? That the fact that they lost 65-7 or whatever it was to Georgia, or the fact that they made the playoff and they beat Michigan and played for the national champion? I mean, they're focused on the positive there. So I guess it ultimately does depend on the lineage of the program and the stature and the expectation of the fans. But I can promise you, yeah, was there a moment where TCU probably wished they would have put forth a better effort than they did? But TCU looks back and like, wow, we went 5-7 in 2021, and last year we played for the Big 12 title, lost in a great game, beat Michigan in the semifinal, a great game, and played for the national title. Whereas Ohio State, oh yeah, we lost to Michigan and somehow we backed our way into the playoff, and then we should have beaten Georgia. But they'll focus on the play calling at the end of the Georgia game, where maybe we didn't run it in the middle of the field and do a little better job of that than the fact that C.J. Stroud had an unbelievable game and they nearly won the game without a couple of the best wide receivers on the field.
Hey, I'm here in Indy. Are you a believer in Anthony Richardson as an NFL quarterback?
Well, for full disclosure, him going under 4.5 would put a significant dent in Bears Bank. I will say that. So, isn't it? I'd love to hear your opinion as well after I give mine. Like, isn't it a terrible spot for him when you take a quarterback in the top 5 or 6 or 10 like that, and you can say all the right things? Oh, we're going to break him in slow. The plan is to sit him and not start. He's starting. He's going to play. I mean, that's why you're taking a quarterback that high. But he was barely ready to play at Florida last year. And some of the games that he had were just mind-numbing and head-scratching as to how inaccurate he was. Now, he's an unbelievable athlete, and you look at him, some of the runs that he had against Florida State were great in those games, but I don't know. I think it's people are making this comparison, and I guess Shane Steichen, I mean, the Colts have maybe said it as well, that, oh, yeah, his familiarity with Jalen Hurts, and we can do the same. Jalen Hurts had like 50 career starts between Oklahoma and Alabama. There were things that Jalen Hurts saw and did that he was ready for. Like, maybe it will work out. I hope it does. I hope all these guys go on to have great careers, but I don't see any way this. I don't think this is the best possible fit and the best possible way to start his career if he ultimately does wind up starting this year and gets kind of thrown to the wolves and maybe gets a little shell shocked with what he's seeing out there.
He's going to have to be very mentally tough, man. He you know what I mean? Because Manning went all-time, here in Indianapolis, this is what we say. Peyton went 3-13 in his first year, set all-time record for interceptions in a season. But you know what? Manning, to your point, had been groomed to be really, let's be honest, a college and NFL quarterback since the time the dude was born. I mean, Richardson's a 20-year-old kid thrust, without weapons too. Like, it's not like the Colts, have Justin Jefferson sitting out here. They don't. Pittman's okay as a second or third option, but they don't have weapons. And it seems to me, unless you get to the point of a Rodgers or a Manning where you make receivers great, at this point, tell me if I'm wrong, you better have receivers that make you great when you're an inaccurate guy early in your career.
Yeah, I think you're 100%. You need to – that's one of the biggest differences I think you've seen with college and pro offenses where, you look at Ohio, you look at Alabama, you look at USC, you look at Oklahoma, some of these – they're just guys running wide open in college. And in the NFL, the throws become much more difficult to make. The windows are shorter and closed. You need wide receivers to bail you out. And maybe they got some guys on the roster that we don't know about. Maybe they're bringing some guys to ultimately help him. But yeah, I think everybody thinks because Josh Allen made that step, they can, we can do it as well. Accuracy is a hard thing to fix and teach, especially when you make that jump. You go from high school to college is one thing. From college from the NFL, you better have players around you that can ultimately bail you out if you are not the most accurate guy in the world.
You okay? Stroud, Bryce Young, good enough? How good?
We'll see. I gave the edge to Bryce Young only because I thought he was the best processor in the draft. I think that his decision-making, he kind of knew what he was going to do with the ball, like a second before he was going to do it. And I think in today's NFL now, so much was made about his size. I think in the NFL today, the way they protect the quarterback now with flags and the way the offenses are now, maybe skewing a little bit more towards the college offenses and shot. I think he's got a better chance, I think, to succeed than Stroud. I think Stroud has all the physical attributes. We'll see though in Houston again. He's in it like Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis with not the best situation around him on the field. He's going to be in Houston now, where you've got kind of a dysfunctional offense. So I hope he does do well. And look, I think physically, I think he certainly fits the part. And you know what? I want to say this too. How in the pre-draft process, with all of the news and reporting that's out there, why is everybody like how does the fact that CJ Stroud and this alleged test and score, how is that like wide spread news and all over the place? But at the same time, we don't hear about Will Levis and teams having a concern about his toe and an operation. How don't we hear about that until like draft night? As a bettor, someone who like you read the reports and you get the information, Will Levis isn't going to fall but below 5 at Colts, and someone will trade up for him. Like, people bet into that and buy that and believe it. And all of a sudden, like suddenly draft night, it's like, hey, people have concern about how does a stupid test score get out there and become like relevant into a quarterback evaluation? But the fact that someone who could be a top 5 pick, maybe he's got a toe that's got some problems and might need surgery, that doesn't. So it's so weird what people and reports and teams, everyone focuses on in this stupid pre-draft process.
Yeah, you know what? I followed this maybe not as hard as you because I ended up not betting it, but I didn't really hear anything about Will Levis's toe being a serious issue until draft night, until Herbie or whoever said it.
Yeah. It was Mord had a report that night, like where I said the first down was ending about the teams out there. They think he may need surgery at the end of the year. Now, look, everyone knew he missed games during the season at Kentucky, but he did come back, and I guess it was kind of figured, okay, it's healed, it's done, it's good. And so, I mean, you hear all sorts of medicals come out of the combine there about this guy's got a medical, Darnell Washington's got a medical, or this guy's got a. No one slapped Will Levis with the medical, so it was just bizarre how all of a sudden that kind of popped up and became an issue.
All right, last thing I got to ask you, because this is the ultimate "are you buying a program is back" bet. The number on Florida State is 10. Are you buying Florida State back?
See, when you say Florida State back, I think Peter Boulware, Andre Wadsworth, Peter Warwick, Marvin Jones. I think of that. Florida State is not back to that. And their number is 10. See, that's a hard number for me because you got to go 11-1 to win. And you look at their schedule. It's funny. I pulled their schedule up when Danny Sheridan actually sent me all the win totals last night. I didn't even know they were up yet. I'm like, let me take a look at this. And I saw Florida State 10 because it was alphabetized with the ACC. And if you look at their schedule, they got LSU to start. They go to Clemson. They go to Wake, which is not always an easy spot. They go to Pitt. They got Miami, and they go to Florida. Like, you got to go 11-1 against that schedule to win. Like, I think 9-3 is more likely than 11-1. So with 10-2 being the probable final result. But like Jordan Travis had an awesome year, and it looks like Mike Norvell probably finally weeded out a lot of the issues from the end of the Jimbo era with Willie Taggart, and now that he's probably feeling pretty good about the roster that he inherited. But I always kind of like going against those off-season trendy chic teams that come in, because a lot of times those numbers are a little inflated. And I think at 10, that number is probably a little inflated. You might get out of September 2-2 if you play the under, and at worst you're pushing at the end of the year. So at 10,
I know
I'm probably under on Florida State because 11-1 I think is going to be really hard to come by for Florida State against that schedule.
No, that's Peter Warwick. That's Boulware. That's exactly right. That's like Bobby Bowden stuff, finishing in the top 5 like 20 years in a row kind of stuff, right? I mean, I don't know, man.
Everyone talks about greatest accomplishments in college football, and people talk about Alabama with the run of titles and the Miami area. But Florida State having, what was it, I think it was 14 straight top 4 finishes. It was like, that's insane.
Can you imagine 14 straight college football playoff appearances, even when they go to 8, right? Even when they go to whatever, that's going to be unbelievable. It's incredible.
Because look, like that's a good parallel, because you say top 4, so you can equate it to 14 straight playoff appearances, 4 teams. Like Alabama's missed the playoffs a couple times, so that they didn't finish in the top 4. So it really is amazing. It's funny because one of the other teams too, I think everyone's going to be so high on Colorado as well. I don't think people realize how bad that roster was. Now, look, I know Dion, they ran a bunch of guys off, and they're looking to bring guys in and improve that roster as well. But at 3.5, I saw, like, if you go down their schedule as well. Again, this is just another one of those chic teams, and everybody's so high on Colorado. And look, I think it was a excuse me. I think it was a good hire. I think, again, it created buzz and excitement, and people are talking about Colorado for the first time probably in 10 years, it seems. But that's a brutal schedule for them. Like you get Stanford at home, which is a win. You would think amongst the Pac-12 where could be a win with an Hooch. You get Colorado State at home, and they're probably going to be a little bit better than people think this year. They're kind of a sneaky Mountain West team, and you get Arizona at home. But like other games that you could potentially win, like Wazoo, like among your ASU, like they're on the road. Like this has the makings of like 3-9, I think, at best for Colorado. And what happens if they do start 0-5 there? They do lose to CSU in Boulder, and you're sitting there at 0-5 after USC comes to like what's that locker room going to be like? Well, what's the attitude around the program going to be like? Is it going to be, they hired Dion, they won the press conference, but like this is either it's going to go one of two ways. It's either going to go really, really well or really, really. This isn't going to be like 6-6, 7-5, 5-7. This is either like 3-9, 2-10, or oh my God, they actually brought guys in and the energy and the excitement and turned it around and they go 9-3 or 8-4. So like it's going to go. I don't think there's any gray. Usually there's always like a little gray area with a lot of teams. Like I don't think it's a gray area. I think this is either really good or really bad. And I tend to lean year one into maybe 3-9 at tops.
You know, all those running off sounds great in the press conference, great in the video, great in April, great in May, and then all of a sudden you got to line up against a team that maybe didn't have guys ran off, against a team that maybe has some veterans that know the program, and then it don't look so great. I always say, man, I was a tough dude in April. Get your ass out of here. And then, boy, did I want him in September. You know what I mean? Damn right.
You know what I think the concern is too? Like, yeah, you can overhaul your roster, but I think the concern is that I think there were guys that he brought in that have already left. I could be wrong with that. Someone told me that, but like if that's happening, that's a problem.
I agree. Hey, thanks, my friend. Have a great vacation. I know you're headed out. Thank you for spending
Great talking
a half hour with us.
Yeah, we'll do this again soon. Be good, bud.
Can't wait. That's the great Chris Felica, a.k.a. Bear, the best hire of Fox Sports ever. That's right, ever, because he brings it every single time. Speaking of great hires, our friend Trey Wallace has info. We've got gambling out the wazoo. We've got gambling at Iowa, Iowa State. We saw what happened at Alabama. Trey has investigated this, and if you are a fan of a college team, you got to hear what Trey has to say next.
One thing you'll notice is every pitcher will do this or this or this, and that's to get moisture for this. Okay, this is rosin, and the rosin bag, if you can probably see this, it's coming out. There's a little dust, right? It's like a little fine powder. Of itself, it's not sticky. Like I have rosin in my hand, it's not sticky. However, the second I do this, when I'm sweating, I make the rosin sticky. That's when I go back to the ball and rub the ball up to give me a little more adhesion between my hand and the ball. Now, here's the thing. If you think about this, if I put a fine powder on my hand and then I make that powder wet that makes it sticky, any dirt that I come in contact with is going to stick to my hand. All right. So what you're going to see over the course of a couple innings will be my hand will start to darken because it might look like a substance, but it's not. It's just sticky rosin that has dirt in it. Now, I was a guy, so here's the thing. I threw a split finger fastball, right? I did not want the ball to stick to my fingers ever. So I didn't want rosin in between my fingers. So I would wash the insides of my fingers between innings with alcohol if it got too sticky. However, there are other guys that throw sinkers, certain breaking balls, who will want the ball to be extra, extra sticky, and they'll just let their hand muddy up. Now, the umpires can certainly say, hey, listen, you got to wash it off. That's fine. But they have to acknowledge that just washing it off isn't going to change the fact that it's sticky, because you go back to the rosin, you have more moisture, it gets stickier. Your hand's going to look dark no matter what, right? And if you touch your hat all the time, you'll see that Major League Baseball players' hats a lot of times will get dark under the brim or dark at the cap. Also, guys like Gaylord Perry that used to cheat, they would use Vaseline on the inside of their caps. They would use Vaseline on the inside of their bottom lower lip because it stayed there. And you see guys that used to do this a lot. That was what they were doing, and then they'd lick their hands. Anyway, so your hand's going to be, so Max's hand was clearly in a non-agreeable state to the umpires. He went back. I'm sure he watched it, but he came back, and you could see the way he was arguing. He didn't do, in his mind, he didn't do it. He followed their orders. He did what they said to do. And this ambiguous rule needs to be fixed and changed.
Look, when it happens in college athletics, Trey Wallace is all over it. When it happens in the pros, Trey Wallace is all over it. Let's just go this route. If it happens, Trey Wallace is all over it. All right, Alabama, the baseball coach, apparently they have phone records. He's on the phone with the guy at Great American Ballpark as he's making a bet. We got Iowa athletes. We got Iowa State athletes. What's going on here, Trey, with gambling in college sports?
Yeah, good morning, brother. We're getting to a spot right now where we saw last week how Alabama decided that they wanted to handle the Brad Bohannon situation. And you look at it, Dan, I mean, this guy, and I'm going to use the word allegedly a lot, okay? But this guy decided while he was in Baton Rouge, he wanted to call a buddy of his and say, hey, look, why don't you go to the Great American Ballpark and let's lay some money on LSU, who was the opponent that night. And then, by the way, let's also not hit it on the money line. Also, let's do a parlay. And you got to understand, too, like for the people out there that maybe don't understand betting as much when it comes to like a money line and how much you can make. Dan, LSU was minus 245, meaning you got to bet a lot of money to make money off something like that. And the figures that have been thrown out to me that were laid in Cincinnati, it was kind of mind blowing. It was like, is this guy trying to get out of a hole? So you fast forward, and I got a phone call that Monday night, and the person said, "Man, you probably want to dig in a little bit more. It's not just Alabama." Getting taken off the betting lines, any gambling halted for them. It's more than that. Well, what happens? I mean, a day and a half later, Brad Bohannon is fired. They've got video of him and that's the crazy part too. Like, these casinos are good. These sports, they know what they're doing. They got this guy, the bettor for Brad Bohannon, allegedly, on the phone, talking to the Alabama baseball coach at the same time they're laying the bet down. So it's like, okay, that's taking it to the next level when it comes to being able to put him in that spot. And all they had to do, I mean, to be honest with you, all they had to do is ping the phone records. Once you ping the phone records, you know where the call's being placed from. Pretty easy. But then you look at what has happened with Iowa and Iowa State. You've got a racing and gaming commission in Iowa that were alerted. Some red flags went up about potential people involved in gambling. And what they've done is they flagged a number of names. It was 26 student athletes at Iowa, 15 student athletes at Iowa State. They range from, Dan, the wrestling team to the basketball team to the track and field squad. It's all over. And there's a difference. I want to point this out. First off, there's no student athletes right now that are being alleged to have shaved any points, being alleged to fix any games, nothing like that. From the people I've spoken with, this comes down to student athletes getting on their phones, Dan, and downloading an app and gambling on games they're not allowed to. And what this does is it creates a problem around college athletics, Dan, Because what have we seen over the last number of years? We have seen LSU enter into an agreement with the Caesar Sportsbook to become the official sportsbook of LSU athletics. We've seen Michigan State do this. We've seen Maryland do this. The list can go on. And my biggest concern and problem with all of this is you invited the gambling on your campus when it's not legal for the student athletes to do it. You're email blasting all these students on campus to get referral code money. And also, let's not forget what went on at Colorado in 2020. They got into a deal with PointsBet for, gambling on campus, and then they were getting referral kickbacks for everybody that signed up. So one of my biggest things is if you're going to invite it in your house, don't be pissed off if something happens while it's in your house. And now we're in a situation where there's going to be more to come out of this, Dan. This is not just going to be Iowa State, and Alabama. I can almost certainly tell you over the next couple months, you're going to see other schools involved in this.
Trey, I got to ask you, the NFLPA came out last week and said, hey, athletes, be careful, professional athletes, because these gambling sites are snitching on you. Everybody said, oh, that's crap. That doesn't happen. Well, wait a second. How are these athletes being identified? Someone got to do the snitching.
Brother, you know how easy it is for these companies? If you use your email, okay, every time I log into a FanDuel app and I want to play, I don't gamble, but sometimes gamble. I'll put $3 on a parlay just to have a little fun with it. But every time I log into that app, at the bottom of it, it says location verified. What that is they can ping to where you're at. They can ping to what city you're in. Most likely, and I've talked to a betting expert about this, they can ping the zip code in the neighborhood that you're in. So when you look at these I guess NFL players and whatnot getting caught as well in this, it's not hard to figure out where these bets are coming from. And then also too, these sports books and gaming commissions and regulators and whatnot, they know a lot about you. They know your social security number. They know your bank account. If you're dumb enough to put your email, your regular email, into the system, they're going to know who you are immediately. And by the way, you're putting your credit card information, your damn name is on there. So what, you have to be very careful if you're going to do this. Now, look, I spoke with 8 student athletes over the last 4 days. 3 of those student athletes told me that they found ways that they could place bets, whether that be through a friend, a girlfriend, trying to set up, random email accounts on different phones, and then the others were like, well, we don't want to risk it. We don't want to risk our eligibility. We're coming to a point right now where the NCAA, Dan, you know how I feel about the NCAA, probably about the same as you. They're trying to wave some power, and right now they don't have any damn power. So they're leaving it up to the schools and the gaming commissions and the regulators to try to figure this all out, and it's going to hurt some eligibility, unfortunately, for some of these student athletes.
I want to go back to something that you talked about. It was always taboo. I've told this story back when I was coaching at Bowling Green on Sunday nights. I would set up a tour with my kids to go and talk to fraternity houses. And, we'd go in there. My kids were little. They liked going. It broke the ice. And one time I'm talking to a fraternity house, and a guy says to me, hey, Coach, you guys play tomorrow night. We had a Monday night game. He goes, you guys are 3.5-point underdogs. You going to cover? Or 3.5-point favorites. Are you going to cover? And I went off. Like, if there were cameras, I'd probably have been fired. I go, you're the stupidest blankety blank. How dumb are you to ask a coach that? Blah, blah. I wanted to make sure I was covered in terms of it. Now what you're saying, though, is even though the coach and the players can't do it and whatever, schools are emailing these kids, are trying to get these kids on campus to sign up, not players, not athletes, but these fraternity kids, sorority girls to sign up? That's what's happening?
Yeah, so I mean, when LSU signed their agreement with Caesar Sportsbook back in 21, they were sending out email. It's an email blast. That's exactly what it is. You're sending out emails to all these students, and okay, if you refer a friend, you get a certain amount of money. It's like that, for a bunch of gambling apps nowadays. But yeah, so they were sending this out there, and you're trying to get, okay, so let's just say your roommate, in the dorm, just a regular student, not a gambler, but your other roommate is, or whatever. And you want to make a little money too. You want that $10 extra. Okay, we'll get him to sign up for it. Okay, you get a referral bonus. That's what was going on at some of these schools, Dan. I mean, Colorado was reportedly getting kickbacks up to $30 to $40 for every person that signed up. I mean, you're inviting this when it's illegal. And I get it. I get this point too. If you got a college campus full of 25,000 students, okay, realistically, and I'm just spitballing off the top of my head, 1,000 of those students might be involved in student athletes across all different sports, on a campus. I get the fraction when it comes to numbers, but man, you are inviting this. You are saying, okay, let's do this. And you know what, too? The temptation for a 21-year-old who wants to bet on the Masters or wants to bet on a race or wants to bet on a college basketball or NBA game, that's difficult at times. They can go sit at a blackjack table. They can go try to hit 21 as much as possible. But when it comes to gambling and going up to a counter and laying some money down, you can't do it. It's going to ruin your eligibility. And I understand the whole, these players might know more, than others. They have an easier way to pick these teams and whatnot. Whatever. My biggest thing is you allowed this when you let these universities sign these agreements. And I had I got an interview coming out with Grant Firking, and he's an NIL director for On3. Used to play at the University of Tennessee. And the biggest thing he told me is that, Trey, in 3 to 5 years, you're going to have, BetMGM, DraftKings, FanDuel. You're going to have all these different betting companies inside these college stadiums. That's where we're trending right now. And if that's the case, Dan, if you can have a sports book inside of a college basketball arena or a college football stadium, man, all you're doing is just dangling the carrot out there for a student athlete to be able to go place a bet, or you're saying, it's okay for 120,000 people to do it. I know you can't do it, but you're tempting them. And that's the biggest thing that's going on right now. And that's why you've seen at Iowa and Iowa State, the number of athletes, that's 41 athletes, student athletes between both schools. And a lot of it, most of it, is them just using friends or getting on their phones and doing it. And when it's that easy, it's hard when it comes to temptation. And I'm not going to sit here and bash the players when the schools are making boatloads of money off these gambling contracts that they have. It's difficult for me.
Hey, I want to go back to something else because people have asked me this. Maybe you mentioned that the number that you heard in the Alabama coach gambling was big. What was the number?
I don't feel comfortable saying the number right now at the moment, but I will say it was a big enough number that it felt like, to me personally, and a couple others that I spoke with around the conference and in college baseball, this guy was trying to get out of a hole. It wasn't here's the thing too. If you're betting $5 to $10 on a parlay every day, and then all of a sudden you bet $1,000 on a Wednesday, that's going to be a red flag. And then Here's another thing, and I'll make this real simple for people too. You can only bet a certain amount on an app. They're only going to allow you to bet 4,000, 5,000. Some bet, it's lower than that. If you go to a sports book, you can walk in there with a duffel bag full of cash and lay it out there on the table. So if you're getting where I'm going with this and you can read between the lines, I think you'll figure out that there was a real decent chunk of money that was laid on LSU and in a parlay. It wasn't just a couple $1,000s, Dan. It was probably a year's salary for most people in the country.
Yeah, I figured. And, the reason I ask you that is because people are under the impression that, baseball coaches don't make much. The hell they don't. Baseball coaches in the SEC, softball coaches in the SEC, they make a lot of money, man. This isn't, it used to be nickel and dime stuff. Used to be 35, 40 grand a college baseball coach made. Not anymore.
No, man, they're making 800,000 to 1.5 million. And we're not even talking about, money that they make outside of, their university for camps and whatnot. Broadcasting rights. All of it's in the contract. But this is not 1980, where these college baseball coaches are making, $40,000 a year. No, this is a big look. I know college baseball for a lot of people is a niche sport, but I will say this: college baseball, when it comes to the World Series and the NCAA tournament, that's a moneymaker for a lot of teams, and there's a lot of money. There's a lot of money put into these universities. Hell, Dan, Mississippi State just spent millions and millions of dollars building a brand new stadium. 10 miles down the road from me, Tennessee's about to pump in around 40 mil. So you look at what these schools are doing in these universities. There's a lot of money in this sport. And once the World Series comes around, everybody starts tuning in a lot more. And I get that part. But man, when we're talking about gambling, when we're talking about, how this plays out in the press, a horrible look. And just a bad look for Alabama again. That school has just gone through the ringer when it comes to a public relations standpoint over the last 6 months. And I think once the investigation's done, you're going to find out a lot more about Brad Bohannon and other games too. And another thing I just want to add to this, like, we're talking about fixing games, and I'm not saying he fixed games or anything like that.
Right.
But Alabama right now is having to go through every single baseball game he coached to make sure there were not any improprieties going on while he was the coach. Can you imagine going through 260 baseball games and trying to pinpoint different things that could have happened? So it's a mess right now. And I have a feeling, it's going to take a while, and there could be some charges brought upon him. So it ain't like you're just getting fired.
Right. No, that's absolutely right. And it's funny. I had an assistant coach who was at Northwestern when they had 3 players fixing games, and he said, we had to go back and watch. He goes, the games that they told us they fixed, all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I can see it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he stepped out of bounds.
People can relate to it.
People
can relate to it in different ways. Like, no, I'm saying people can relate to it in like different ways, Dan. Like, what was the hot movie back in the early 90s? It was Blue Chips. Everybody loved Blue Chips. You remember that scene where Nick Nolte's sitting in the room and he's watching film and he's like, there's no way he's shaving points. There's no way he's shaving points. Turns out he was. I'm just saying gambling is a lot more prevalent right now in college athletics than people think it is. And these student athletes are finding ways to get around the system. And look, they're risking their eligibility over, I had one student athlete tell me, why would I risk? I don't have enough money to make money off gambling. So why would I risk my eligibility? So it's a cluster right now, Dan.
Appreciate you, Trey. Great stuff, man. Thank you.
Hey, buddy, always great to join you. Have a great week.
You too. Hey, this just came in. Pete Hamel is reporting that Bob Huggins is going to return to the West Virginia University sideline. Here's the deal. Details. West Virginia and Huggins are finalizing deals for him to return to the sideline next season in the wake of him using an anti-gay slur on the radio this week. He's expected to receive a suspension, $1 million salary reduction, and sensitivity training. This is from Pete Hamel of ESPN. Those are among the requirements for Huggins that are being finalized that he needs to fulfill in order to return. Yeah, give Huggy some sensitivity training. Yeah, dude's 70 years old. All right, there you go. I told you I did not think that Huggins was going to be fired. I didn't think he was going to be fired from the time it happened. I know how athletic departments think, and Huggins is, for whatever the reason, an icon. He is the icon of West Virginia. I remember when they gave me that job, it was like, all right, at what point do y'all want Huggins here? Beeline knew that Huggins was sitting right there. It is the funniest thing ever. Look, I don't give a damn what you do with Huggins, and I know that others on this, I think Clay and I think others have said he shouldn't be fired. I don't care whether he was fired or not. I just like the fact that the world knows what I've always known, is that this guy is a complete dirtbag. And actually, 90% of the coaches that are college coaches in the Hall of Fame are absolute dirtbags. Let's go through Huggins in the Big 12. 6-12, 9-9, 11-7. He had one good year, 13-4, 12-6, 11-7, 4-14. Here are his last 5 years. 4-14, 9-9, 11-6, 4-14, 7-11. Somehow he made the NCAA tournament going 19-10 and 19-15. There you go, Huggy Bear. Once he got into a conference, like he has never won a conference championship in a conference other than the Great Midwest or Conference USA. And I'm going back to 2005 when he left Cincinnati. The last time he won a conference, and Cincinnati was headed on the downside. Last time he won a conference title, was 2004. I'm not talking about a NCAA tournament title. I'm talking about a conference. So he goes to West Virginia in 08, 5th, 7th, 2nd, 6th, 8th. 8th, 6th, 3rd, 2nd, 2nd, 11-7, 12-6 get you 2nd, 10th, 3rd, 10th, 8th. Not a conference title. And this is a Hall of Famer. Doesn't matter to me even a little bit what West Virginia does. Doesn't matter to me slightly what West Virginia does. Not even at all. But I just told you what scumbags they are. I spent a week there. And when the president threatened my wife and I, we're like, yeah, jackass. Yeah, I always did this. I swear to God, I always did this. Every time somebody threatens me, even to this day, I just kind of laugh. And sometimes I laugh thinking, how quickly could I beat his ass? And this little roly-poly, self-important guy named David Hardesty, the president of West Virginia, threatened my wife and me. My wife stood up. I'm sitting there laughing. I'm like, really? And I'm thinking, how quickly, if I jumped over that desk, would I beat the living crap out of him? Now, I know you're not supposed to say that, and I know people get mad at me because I said I would have beat the hell out of a school board down in Scottsburg. Hey, what are you going to do? Sometimes guys need their ass kicked. But the truth of the matter is this. It does not surprise me even in the least. Even in the least that Huggins is going to be back. It's a pretty steep fine. I mean, $1 million. Why was Tom Brenneman fired and still a pariah? You know why? Coach is king, baby. Coach is absolute king. He's the Gazda. And it took everything they could do at Indiana to get rid of Bob Knight. And Bob Knight, I don't think, ever said a homophobic or racial slur. I think some guy tried to pin it on him in a restaurant later on in his career, and that guy was full of crap. But I would ask, look, what are we doing? So anyway, Huggy's going to be back. No surprise. Let's go with a couple woke-a-dopes. We didn't get to What the Hell Wednesday today. The guests were too good. Hit the like button, people. I need you to do it. I need you to subscribe. I need you to do it. Sensitivity training. There you go. What's that? The media oh, yeah. Well, you focus on Jordan Neely's mental health. That is racism. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they're obsessing over mental health. That's classic white supremacy. Look, you can say whatever you want. Joy Reid is an idiot. Joy Reid is a complete idiot. And Joy Reid will make anything racist. I got a quandary here. All right, I'm going to tell you my quandary. When I was a kid, there were older guys. They had a little drug gang in the neighborhood kind of back behind our house. It was on the same block, but it was over there. Their lot connected, the Kelmans connected to, I think, the Moores or whatever. And they had a little drug gang going. Now, I want you to follow me here. One of the drug members was Jeffrey Beering. Jeffrey Beering was the crazy guy in our neighborhood. He was a white guy. Wore jeans in the hot summer, walked around our neighborhood barefoot playing a guitar. I was a paper boy. I was scared to death to go to the Beering house because I felt like Jeffrey Beering was nuts. You know what Jeffrey Beering ended up doing? I'll tell you. In an empty lot behind my house, across the street from Gretchen Wellman's house, Jeffrey Beering stabbed a little girl 33 times, killed her with a screwdriver. Now, what are we supposed to do? We've got a guy over here, African-American dude, that's acting crazy. He's yelling at the school. He's doing people have called the police. The school in particular, has said, look, this guy can't be on our grounds. Now there are cops in front of the school during check-in and check-out times. My wife went running, saw him, and turned around and went the other way. Like the neighborhood app, I forget what it's called, is talking about this idiot. So what are we to do? So if he attacks my wife, am I not allowed to defend my wife? Clearly the guy has mental health issues, but I got to defend my wife. This guy, Jordan Neely, had been arrested like 40 times, had done all kind of horrible things, and somebody finally put a stop to it. You can call that racism all you want. I call it protecting society. I don't give a damn what Joy Reid, or I don't give a damn what AOC, or I don't give a damn how they try to politicize this. At some point, you got to stand up for people. It's just like I always said. I see a dude dressed like a girl going into the girl's bathroom, and my daughter's going in either before or after. I'm going in with him. You don't like it? Tough. You want to call me an ick? Tough. You want to call me an is? Tough. Just like I'm not going in a pool with a woman that isn't my wife. I don't give a damn about Joanna Mellis and all the women's libbers or whatever they think they are getting mad at me, or Dan Wolken or Greg Doyle or anybody. I'm not doing it. It's the way the world works. So you can say whatever you want about racism, not racism. If a black dude choked out a white dude, we wouldn't even be talking about it. We don't even talk about when African Americans kill white people. The numbers are staggering in terms of African American crime against white people. I don't want to hear it. I've had enough. Give me the next one. There you go. God is Trans exhibit at a very liberal Catholic church raises eyebrows for take on gender identity. Okay. A Catholic church. See, I'm not sure what the Catholic Church, why you'd want to involve yourself in this if you're the Catholic Church. Doesn't the Catholic Church, my church, have enough problems? I mean, we got Bob Huggins calling us, sexual slurs. What are we doing? Come on. What are we doing? We got Bob Huggins calling us Catholic homophobic slurs. We got, obviously, all kind of things with priests, altar boys, that kind of thing. I was an altar boy. I never did two things. I never got hit on by a priest, and I never drank the wine in the back. Guys were. I wasn't. Didn't interest me. No idea why guys would want to do that. I never did. Probably should have a great story somewhere, but a friend of mine swears he got hit on by a priest. My friends tell me and they joke. See, you can actually joke about certain things. They joke at me about why I didn't. But I don't know why anybody in the Catholic Church would want to be involved in this. It doesn't make sense at all. At all. Not even a little bit. Jennifer says sensitivity training, that's the bigger problem. Everybody's too damn sensitive. Everybody is too damn sensitive. Like I said, I don't care what they do with Huggy. Ain't my fight. I just know that Huggins is a dirtbag. I just know that West Virginia is a scumbag place. That's what I know. You can cover it up. You can say it's not. They can say whatever they want to say. But the truth of the matter is, it's West Virginia, baby. Brian Moyer says good for West Virginia. This guy says it's a non-story. You're just a clown. I can't stand this Dakich POS. Just a troll who's been second or third tier as a human being his whole life. Yes, that is me. I am a second or third tier human being. Maybe fourth tier. David Hookstead says this. Huggins being fined $1 million for saying a bad word. And Nate Oates wasn't punished at all after one of his Alabama players was accused of murder. Another accused of driving the gun to the scene. We now punish words worse than actual actions that impact people. That's fair enough. That is fair enough. But in the world that I live in, if I were the athletic director, Bob Huggins would not have a job. Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much to YouTube folks. You guys were there. Beautiful. I'm doing the show tomorrow from Princeton, but I'm going to have good internet. I am. I may do it from the field. I may do it from the tailgate. It might be an Ivy League tailgate party tomorrow. How about that? Lee's bringing the booze. We got all kind of stuff. It is the Ivy League Final Four. Tomorrow, Princeton against Columbia and Harvard against Yale. Yeah, I'm driving 10 hours. You know who's over there? My brother-in-law. He always comes in when we're not here. He likes to play with the dog and fish, but only when we're gone. He says he's watching the house, he and Jared. I ain't buying it. I just think they have big parties, blowing hookers when we leave. But hey, as long as they clean up. See you. Aaron, thank you. Dylan, awesome. Ryan, thank you. Haley, as always. Katie, beautiful. Gary, thanks. We'll see you tomorrow.